In this video, I'll show you how to get started using the Cadasio Onshape app to create an interactive 3D document. The first thing you're going to want to do is create a Cadasio account, which you can do easily and for free at cadasio.com. You'll need to specify a valid email and password, and once you sign up, you'll be sent an activation email. You'll also want to subscribe to our Onshape add-in. You can do this through the Onshape App Store. Simply find Cadasio and click subscribe. Now, when you're next in Onshape, with an open document, simply click the plus and go to Add Application and choose Cadasio. You'll notice a new tab appear which should become active. At this point, you'll be required to sign in using your Cadasio credentials. And then you'll be taken to the Create Project tab in the interface. Click Choose Onshape Element and you'll be presented with the familiar Onshape interface to choose the CAD object you wish to use as a basis for your new Cadasio project. You're required to enter a name for your project and optionally a description. A great thing about using Cadasio with Onshape is that you can work directly within your Onshape environment. You'll notice an option to open a new project after it's been created. If you're just creating the project for another member of your team that's going to use Cadasio, simply untick this. Your Onshape file will now be processed and your project created. This could take a minute or so depending on the size and complexity of your assembly. If you're new to Cadasio, I'd recommend going through our Getting Started guide, which I'll detail at the end of this video. For now though, it's worth me showing you some of the basics of Cadasio to get you started and show how easy it is to create a 3D interactive instruction manual from your Onshape data. Cadasio has a concept of steps and properties. Everything in your scene has got properties, whether that's its colour, its position, its render style and so on, and a step remembers the properties that you've changed. When you then transition between steps, Cadasio will automatically animate the property changes for you. So let's start. I'm going to select a component by left clicking it, and then down on our property bar I can change its colour, and let's set it to say green. I can do the same for the opposite one, set that to green too. And you see how quick and easy it is. I'm just selecting a component, looking at the property bar in the bottom left and changing the colour. When I'm looking at the colour picker, I can pick things graphically, or I can enter a hex or RGB value in the input down here. Just say OK, and you see I've made a couple of changes now to the colour of those objects. I can now look at saving a step by clicking the icon at the top of our screen. When I do so, I'll be required to input a name that Cadasio will automatically generate for us, but I can overwrite, and there are a couple of step options that control the behaviour of the step. If I click Create, it's now gone off and saved that step. Using my page up and page down keys, I can go between my start step and that step I just created, and you'll see the colours transitioning between the default grey and the colours that I set. I can see the steps that I've created by clicking the step name at the top of the screen. I see both steps here, and if I click the folder icon, that's another way of activating a step. So let's just go to step 1, like so. When you select an object in Cadasio, the movement triad will automatically appear. This will allow you to move it along a particular axis, plane, or free drag it. I want to move all the bolts out, so I'm going to use the selector on the right hand side of the screen and choose Select All. With them all selected, I can then go to our toolbox, and using the Line 3D tool, I can add some auto lines such that when I move those bolts, we get some explode lines automatically appearing. Because I'm happy with that step, I can go up to the top of the screen again and choose Create Step. To hide objects, I can go to the selector, and for example on the Toolbox tab, I can find my toolbox items, and the checkbox next to them controls the visibility, so I can untick all the lines at the same time. We have the same sort of tree hierarchy for CAD objects too. I can toggle the visibility with the checkbox. In this case though, if I select one of the bolts again, choose the select instances, and then I can just quickly click hide in the selector. Save that as a step. Now using either my middle mouse button or right mouse button, depending on my control preferences, I can rotate the model round, and let's add some 2D markup to our scene. So in our toolbox, I'm just going to select a label. My first left click attaches its leader, the second left click places it. If I double click the text, I can then type in the text that I want to appear. So let me just type in unscrew. And just like anything else, I can customize this using the property bar. So let's change its shape. So click on the shape tab. I can then change it to say rectangular. Let's change the corner radius so it hasn't got any. And let's make it slightly bigger as well. We can change the leader style. Let's get it nice and curved. Great. Because I'm happy with that, I'm going to save this as a step. If I have an object selected, I can quickly hide it simply by pressing my H key. So let me hide this label. To multi-select objects, I hold down the Control key and I click any objects that I want to select. And rather than translate these two objects, I'm actually going to rotate them, and I can do that by pressing my Alt key, and the triad will change to rotation mode. If I don't like pressing Alt, then in my selector I can use this button here to toggle between translation and rotation mode. Once it's in rotation mode, let's just turn them a bit, like so. And let's save that as a step. Great. And finally, I'm going to take the blue component, use the triad by left clicking and dragging the appropriate axis, and also hide it. And I'm going to save that as my final step. Great, so we've now got several steps. If we go back to the start, I'm going to use my page up key to go between the steps. You see we've got the default colours as it is imported here. If I go page up, I can look at the colour changes that we did. Okay, next step has the bolts and the explode lines coming out, then they're hidden. The camera rotates, the label appears. The next step, the components will rotate, and then finally the blue component moves and disappears. So really quick and very easily, I've created several steps just to show you the basics of Cadasio, and it's worth pointing out that all this has been done whilst in the Onshape environment. Now I can get back to the add-in options by going up to the main menu in the top left and choosing Home. And once it loads up, you'll notice that we now have additional tabs in our add-in options. We have Open and Update, as well as the Create New that we had previously. And it's actually the update that I want to run through with you to show how useful this add-in is. So back in Onshape, I'm going to take this gearbox and I'm going to make a modification to it. So I'm going to choose this part here, and I've already got a configuration set up where this part gets a bit longer. So let me just change the configuration, say OK, and it'll update. Great. Now I want to push that update change to the instructions that I've already created. Now previously that may have meant recreating those views from scratch or redrawing from scratch. But if I go to the Cadasio tab and make sure I'm on update, I can type in a change note and click update, and it'll push that up to my Cadasio project. Now I actually want to show you what happens if it's someone else using Cadasio to do the instruction manuals. If you as the Onshape user pushes those changes up, then when they're using Cadasio to create their manuals, they'll get a pop-up coming up telling them there's a new file version available. If they choose to accept that, then Cadasio will reload and it'll update all the steps to reflect the changes that you've made within Onshape. These changes could be adding new components, deleting components, they could be changing the geometry, changing the configuration as we've done here to get this thing longer. Doesn't matter what it is, it will have updated my project and just saved us a load of time with rework. And you'll see that now that this blue component's longer, it doesn't matter what step I go to. If I start animating it, you'll see that it's got exactly the geometry that we want. So the label's there, it's animating, it's disappearing exactly as you'd expect. Now the real nice thing about the file versions in Cadasio is that you can actually go back to a previous file version if you needed to. So if your CAD guy had done something really daft, like deleted all the components out and then pushed it up, it won't necessarily completely ruin your Cadasio project, because at any time you can go back to the original file sets. And you can view that by going to the Cadasio menu and clicking on File Versions. Alternatively, you can go to the Cadasio dashboard, open up the project and go to the Components tab. And from here you'll see the file versions and you can choose which one is active. You can also delete file versions that are no longer required, or if someone pushes a file version up that you don't want, you can just delete it off. So hopefully you can see how powerful the update mechanism is with Cadasio and how much time it can save. Well, let me just run through what you actually do with your project once you've created it. If I go to the Publish tab, you'll see that I have an option to publish all the images out as 2D high resolution PNGs. But better than that, if I just publish my project, I'll be given a QR code that I can save, a URL that I can share, and also an embed code so that I can put the project on my very own website. And let me just show you what all the codes lead to. And what you're looking at here is now Cadasio in the viewer side of things. So I could share this with anyone. It doesn't matter whether they're on a Windows PC, a Mac, phone, tablet, they'd be able to see this. I can go through all my steps, so you see the animations, you'll see the labels and so on, and it's giving us a real nice 3D view of my instruction manuals. Great, well hopefully that's given you an overview of the basics of Cadasio. I did say at the start that if you're a completely new user, you'd want to run through our Getting Started guide. And to do that, you'll want to go to the Cadasio dashboard, make sure you're on the Help tab, and then click the button that says click here to get the guide. What that will do is create a project for you and also give you a PDF which is pretty comprehensive and runs through step by step on all the basic fundamentals of Cadasio to get you up and running very quickly. Also on the help page you'll notice links to 4 most common videos that people need to watch when they get started, but also links to our YouTube channel and our forum in case you need to ask any questions. Great, well hopefully you found this video useful and it's giving you an idea of how to make an interactive 3D assembly or service instruction from your Onshape data, and also how powerful it is if you want to update it to reflect any design changes. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn, and if you have any questions, then please don't hesitate to get in touch.